This broke last night, and more information has been coming out overnight, and we can confirm some of the details about it. This is another transgender-related shooting. We just had one in Canada. Now this is in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. CBS reports 2 killed in shooting at high school hockey game in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. 2 people were killed and 3 others critically injured in a shooting at a high school boys hockey game in Pawtucket. The suspect is also dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Police identified the shooter as Robert Dorgan, who also used the name Roberta and the last name Esposito. And if you see reports online, you'll see that there's plenty of social media evidence that Mr. Dorgan here was quite visibly attempting to dress and act and undergo treatment to appear to be a woman, but also had all kinds of crazy arm tattoos, a giant SS Nazi tattoo on his arm. Definitely not someone who seemed mentally stable. Yeah. And unfortunately, this is an unfortunate part of what happened, but I believe it was his daughter was at the game and was leaving, and journalists were coming up and shoving microphones in her face and whatever. And she was clearly, distraught, but she did confirm the suspect was her father and he had mental issues. And then, unfortunately that she had, to go through that right at such a horrible moment, because he was targeting members of his family. I believe one of the killed was his ex-wife, and there was some kind of family dispute going on. And I believe it was originally reported that children had been killed. That is not true. The 2 who were killed were adults, but I believe at least some of the injured were children. Really, right,
at least 2 of his children were shot, and there's just something truly awful and kind of boggles the mind about a father taking a gun and shooting his own children, and obviously his ex-wife as well.
Yeah.
But especially the kids, it just kind of makes you just cringe inside at that the idea of that happening at a hockey game of all things.
Yeah.
And there is video of it. Fortunately, you can't see what happens, but you can hear the number of shots that rings out, and it sounds like he's shooting probably 13, 14 times.
Yeah.
It's just a really reckless, act of just aggression. It's an incredible thing. And then of course everybody thinks that it's a mass shooter in the more generic sense, that he's shooting at anyone, but he was actually targeting his own family specifically. Yeah. There are some reports that somebody intervened or attempted to stop him, but from what we can tell, at least at this early stage, it does seem like it was his family that was being targeted specifically and exclusively.
Yes.
Just with reckless disregard for everyone else who was there. It's really just difficult to put the entire thing into words. And this guy, like you said, I'm just going to call him Robert because that is his name.
Yeah.
There are so many images online, and he's dressed as a woman, but he's obviously one of the more, in terms of physique, obviously masculine men.
Yeah.
You don't look at him and go, okay, well, he, looks like a 14-year-old boy, like you often have women who are trying to become men. Instead, he looks like an obviously well-built man who's dressed in women's clothing in a sort of offensive to women kind of a way.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's... and then you have to wonder, well, what did his poor children think of that? Like, their father had to deal with that. Their son had to deal with that as a father.
Yeah.
It's just a really heinous thing, and I think that it kind of draws into question the entire narrative in terms of, well, we're told that it's so compassionate to encourage.
Yeah, to enable.
To enable, exactly. But what about the family members, the children of these people who actually have to live through this and are told that they're not being compassionate if they don't encourage and enable? But it's like they actually have to, there's no compassion for them. There's no compassion for the child who has a right to a mother and a father, who act as such because, they should act in accord with their nature.
Yes.
But instead, there's no compassion for them. Instead, they're just supposed to encourage a mental illness that's gradually deteriorating before them.
Yeah. And you can see the result here. And the fact that he was not just lashing out at, random people, but the fact that he was attacking his family. The police say it was a family dispute. We can only speculate on that, and we shouldn't speculate on those causes. We'll see what comes out. We'll wait for, the family to have any kind of statement if they can, but obviously first and foremost is them dealing with the trauma of this event and the trauma leading up to it. As you say, having to deal with this issue, this mental illness on the part of the husband and father, and keep them all in your prayers, keep all the deceased in your prayers. But the very fact that it continues to get to this point, the more you encourage this issue, the more frequently it results in violence and death, because it's mental illness acting out, and eventually it is going to lash out in so many of these cases. Obviously there are plenty of cases of mental illness that don't result in lashing out at other people. That certainly happens. Sometimes it's merely a matter of lashing out against oneself. That's why the suicide rates are so high, and those suicide rates don't change just because you enable and encourage the delusions. Those suicide rates stay high. So you are not helping them in that case. The only help is to try and treat the illness and cure it in the most charitable possible way. That's the way to save the lives of people like this, is to try and address those mental health illnesses. Yes. And so, this is 2 in a week, or just under 2 weeks?
Yes.
Two more
I think
of these?
it's roughly a week. Yes.
Yeah. And the out of what percentage of the population at this point? So it's, to anyone with a modicum of common sense, it's clear what the problem is. And again, this is probably going to get either completely shoved under the radar. I'm encouraged to see that CBS at least reported what the police said about him, that he went by, a female name, and they didn't go into the details of what's clear from his social media posts and things he said on Twitter in response to people. He was talking about this, being mean about, trans people is why trans people go berserk. And then, then he ends up going berserk. This is, he's saying it himself on his social media accounts. It's ridiculous. And again, it's going to get swept under the rug or portrayed as something different, but the real issue is quite obvious.
Right, we see that all the time. When you look back on these people's media posts, they're busy threatening anyone who would change society towards one of reason.
Yeah.
We saw that, I believe, with the last shooter that we covered just last week. We're seeing that again with this guy. And so he's responding to one comment thread after another and threatening people for daring to question him. And in previous times you would say, okay, this is a psychosis. This is someone who's dangerous. But now we can't do that. His poor wife separated from him. Apparently she was his ex-wife, according to one of our people in our chat, was saying that she divorced him, separated from him because he, quote, surgically changed himself.
Yep.
And it's like, it causes these broken families, these broken relationships, and then we're supposed to act like there's a good in that and act like they're the only victim, as opposed to the entire social sphere around them, hitherto called a family. There's so many layers to this, Jake. I don't think we're going to be able to unravel just the amount of damage that's being done by one case after another that's just being encouraged and ignored and placated and enabled. Yeah, it is tragic. Again, we need prayer, but we do need actual action on this. We need policies that prevent the encouraging of these delusions, and especially when it's targeting children. But we can see how it affects adults as well, and the ones who are not entirely mentally stable, obviously. So we need action on this, as well as just keep praying, keep these people in your prayers.